Today on Missing Live, it was meant to be a lad's night out on a relaxing summer holiday.
But when the sun rose over Crete the next morning, Steve was nowhere to be found.
Can you help find him? This is Missing Live. Every day, almost 600 people are reported missing. We need your help to find them and reunite them with their friends and families.
If you think you can help in any way, then please get in touch. The number's free phone 0500 700 700. The Metropolitan Police and the charity Missing People are with us live all morning. And Sergeant Dave Brewster from the Metropolitan Police in Hackney is here with some good news about one of our appeals.
Yeah, following last week's appeal in relation to Mary Dorman, our inquiries led us up to the Northamptonshire area yesterday, where we found and spoke to Mary, and she's safe and well.
Brilliant. And just to remind everyone, she's the 28-year-old. She's from East London.
That's right.
And it was completely out of character. And then talking to you before, there's a pretty good story about how you found her as well. And if you had time, we'd say that. Brilliant news, Dave. We'll be talking to you later on in the programme. Please keep us updated if you get any other news throughout the show.
Cheers.
Yes, and we'll be bringing you any updates we get throughout the programme. But if you have any questions for the team or stories you'd like to tell us, please email missing.live@bbc.co.uk.
Jane Asher will be here in a few minutes to talk about how people with autism are particularly vulnerable to going missing.
But first, a reunited story. His mum knew he was out of sorts when he got up and left a quiz night. She didn't expect her son to go missing. Shirley and Barry Shear live in West Sussex. They marry in 1960 and have Martin 4 years later. Martin's first couple of years are just like any other child. But by the time he's 3, Shirley knows something isn't quite right.
The playgroup he went to noticed that he wasn't functioning in play with the other children. He wasn't joining in with anything.
By the time he's at school, his symptoms are more worrying.
He showed no fear of fire, and he was putting his hand in candles, and he showed no fear with that at all.
Determined to find answers about his behaviour, Martin's parents get him the professional help he needs.
He went to a place called the Child Guidance Clinic, and it was there that they diagnosed him as autistic, but he was 9 by the time they fully diagnosed him.
Autism is a brain development disorder that affects 1 in 100 people in the UK. It causes people to have difficulty with social interaction. They can have emotional and language problems. To people with a condition like Martin, the world can appear a bewildering place. It's the 70s. Little is known about autism, and Martin is often singled out.
He was severely bullied at the senior school.
By the age of 15, the struggle with his disability and the world he's living in becomes a problem for Martin.
He sat on the end of the bed one day with me and he cried, and he's only cried about 3 times in his life, and he said, "Mum, when's this all going to stop?" Through the bullying, they decided that he would probably be better off in a residential school. That was better because the classes were smaller.
Finally, he gets the round-the-clock care he needs, and the quality of Martin's life improves. His mum, Shirley, notices the difference.
Occasionally he'll come up to you and he'll give you a hug, which is quite unusual for an autistic person to do, you know? And he has actually come up to me and said, "I love you, Mum," you know, and that is just amazing when that happens.
As awareness of autism and its treatment improves, Martin becomes happier and more settled. Through his 20s and 30s, he lives in different care homes and travels with his mum and dad. By 2007, Martin's contented with a familiar routine and regular contact with his family. But on June the 28th, 2007, Martin is out of sorts.
Somebody had upset him, I think, or he was upset about something, but we couldn't get to the bottom of it.
Shirley plans to take Martin to a quiz night at a local care centre.
He knows a lot of people there, and it might help him to come out of whatever he's thinking about and raise him up a little bit.
After an hour, Martin gets up and leaves the room.
He didn't come back. And then one of the staff came over to me and said, "I think I've just seen Martin go out the front door." I jumped up and chased out to see if I could find him. He'd gone. We all looked round the grounds and everywhere. I couldn't find anything, so we alerted the police.
Everyone suddenly realises Martin has vanished. Still to come on Missing Live, a massive land and air search is launched.
My concerns grew every day. Obviously, someone like Martin with autism is extremely vulnerable.
As sniffer dogs join the search, have police finally tracked him down?
He fitted the description, same sort of build, even the same sort of clothing.
We'll have more on Martin's story a bit later. If you have a similar story, please email us at missing.live@bbc.co.uk. Jane Asher is here, who's president of the National Autistic Society. Morning.
Good morning.
I know you know a little bit about Martin's story. How would his autism have affected him, and why would that make him go missing, do you think?
Well, obviously autism is a very broad spectrum. It covers a huge range of disabilities, so it's very hard to talk about one individual because it's extremely variable. But a thread that runs through autism is a complete lack of social awareness and social communication, and also a love of routine. So the fact that clearly Martin's routine was utterly destroyed once he wandered off would have made him very confused, very, very vulnerable, and really unable to ask for the sort of help that you or I might do in that kind of situation.
So that would explain as well why he seemed to have stayed put in one place, would it?
I'm sure he was very, very frightened and totally disoriented. And yes, it might well explain why he felt safest just waiting, keeping still, and assuming that Mum would find him. I mean, that's what had always happened before. Of course, presumably if he was in trouble, if he was unsure what was happening, Mum would come and look after him, or one of his carers would come and find him. So for Martin, it might be hard to understand that because he was in a different situation, it would be difficult for somebody to find him. He might well have just assumed somebody will come and look after me.
Also, we talk a lot about autistic children, and there are many, obviously, adults as well.
Well, there are as many adults as children because it is a lifelong condition. Although the symptoms can be hugely mitigated by the right support and care, the underlying autism is incurable, so that somebody who is a child with autism will become an adult with autism. And as with many conditions, I think it can be very, very tough as you get older. You may be a very cute, very beautiful little child with autism, and you may grow into a difficult teenager who finds it even harder to cope with the world because they're older, the hormones are kicking in and so on. The world can be extremely unforgiving.
Do you think things are changing now from when Martin was a little boy, the way children with autism are taught, for example?
Absolutely. I mean, now we know how to make somebody's life one of dignity and fulfilment. We know what a child with autism needs. Getting it can still be a minefield, and we know many, many parents who have to fight, with their local authority to get what is their right, to get the correct support. I see a lot of adults, perhaps people who've only been diagnosed in their 50s, 60s, even 70s, who are deeply distressed, have extremely challenging behaviour because they never had that support. And one of my great wishes, is that every child could have the right support and help so that I don't ever have to see again, adults in deep despair.
And missing as well.
And missing as well.
OK, Jane Asher, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Now, your help is needed to find 38-year-old Suzanne Adams. She's been missing from Ascot in Berkshire since 22nd of May 2007. Suzanne's 5'5" tall, of medium build, with blue eyes and long, straight brown hair. If you think you can help trace her, please call Missing People on 0500 700 700. Calls are free from a landline, but mobiles will vary.
A night out on a lad's holiday in the sun, but as a new day dawns, Steve hasn't come back to his hotel room.
The island of Crete attracts over 2.5 million visitors every year. 20-year-old Stephen Cook arrives here on 31st of August 2005 with a group of friends. What starts as a lively holiday turns, within 2 days, into a major missing persons investigation involving Greek and British police. The Cook family live in the town of Sandbach in Cheshire. Stephen's the youngest of Norman and Pat's 4 children. He's always been close to Chris, his elder brother.
It was a bit of a surprise when he came along because he's 10 years younger than me. I remember the day that he was born, myself and Tony, Steve's other brother, we just sort of absolutely legged it home from school to get home as quickly as we could. It was just like, you know, it was a little new plaything for us, and I think that kind of continued.
He was a very likeable kid, lots of friends. Friends that stuck with him right through school into his life after school at university.
A bright and motivated teenager, Stephen wins a place at Liverpool University. The Cooks enjoy many family holidays together. Stephen loves spending time with his little nieces. In 2005, he books a package tour with his mates before starting the final year at university.
I said to Stephen, you know, have a good holiday, but look, be careful, stay together, don't get separated. It's a new place, you don't know. How ironic are those words?
Malia is a popular resort for young people, and its lively night spots are packed with revellers. The boys' hotel is in the centre of town. On their first night, they're keen to join the fun.
There was a bar crawl that was organised that we decided as it was free, we'd just jump on, and it'd be a good way to find out which were the best bars to go to and that for the rest of the holiday.
We were having a really good time, everyone was laughing and joking, really, really good night.
Like thousands of other young holidaymakers, the group parties for hours.
Just after midnight, I decided that I'd had enough to drink, and Steve volunteered to come back with me, make sure I got back okay. On the way back to the hotel, Steve said, why don't I have one more drink? We weren't far from the hotel, so we went into this bar to have one drink each. The bar was proper rammed to the rafters, really. It was really full. So I quickly looked round to see if I could spot Steve in the bar, but I couldn't find him.
Andy presumes they'll see each other back at the hotel. But the next morning, Steve isn't there.
He decided to alert a rep that Steve had been missing and hadn't come back. He seemed to be quite calm about the situation and just said that this sort of stuff does happen quite often, and that it was a bit too early to contact the police and that we should wait a little longer.
Then it come to sort of mid-afternoon, 3 o'clock. That's when, you know, we started to get a bit worried because we heard nothing from him, and it was unlike Steve. So that's when everyone started to, you know, started to panic.
By the end of the day, Stephen's friends decide to report him missing to the Greek police. They then have to call his family.
Well, I was sat at my desk and the phone call came, and, you know, I just went numb. You know, the legs went, you know, you feel like the pit of your stomach's just been torn out.
The police in Malia told him, well, look, don't worry, he's probably gone off with a girl, or he's You know, if the worst that'll happen, he'll be back for his flight and so on and so forth. And it's after hearing that I realised that there was a problem, because I knew Stephen well enough to know that he would never do that to his friends. He would never, ever disappear, go off with a girl without telling them where he was. He wouldn't have worried them.
The investigation is now in the hands of the Greek police, but the family aren't happy to just sit at home and wait for news. 2 days later, Stephen's brothers arrive in Crete to help with the search.
When we got out there and we met with Steve's friends that he was on the bar crawl with, and we ascertained the facts, you know, when did he leave, where was it, and we had a quick walk around the location to find out what the possibilities were, you know, to look for signs of blood, look for signs of car accidents, anything like that. Is it lit? Is it unlit? Where would you go walking? And to try and sort of retrace the steps.
The group spends the rest of the holiday putting up posters and talking to anyone who might give them clues.
I think everyone felt that something had happened to Steve, and it was really upsetting, but everyone was, you know, trying to be positive, and we all thought, yeah, Steve's going to come back in a minute. He'll be, you know, he'll come back with a smile on his face and his little cocky walk that he had, but, you know, you just can't sort of explain how you're feeling putting missing photos up with one of your friends.
12 days later, his friends have to give up and catch their flights home.
When we realised we had to go on the flight, it was a bit horrible experience knowing that we were going to have to leave him behind.
I think everyone was just absolutely devastated, and then I don't think anyone said 2 words really on the flight home. It was just, you know, devastation really.
Later, on Missing Live, a young man is seen in Crete sleeping rough in a disused mine. Could it be Stephen? And there's a mystery call to the family home.
Pat answers the phone and she gets a garbled sort of noise, I can best explain. The phone went dead.
And if you think you can help find Steve, then please call Missing People on 0500 700 700. Remember, landline calls are free, but mobiles will vary. Now, this programme depends on your calls, and Ruth from Missing People is here to update us on the information that came in after yesterday's programme. Ruth, what have you got for us?
Yeah, we've continued to have some sightings about Luke Durbin, obviously information going over to the police, and we'll have some more updates on that later.
Well, that's encouraging, and some of those have just come in literally just now, haven't they?
Yeah, there's been quite a lot of interest in Luke. Mother and sister incredibly worried about him. We need as much info as possible.
And whereabouts are those sightings?
At the moment in London, in the East End.
Fantastic. And Stephen Hadley, I understand you've got something on him as well?
Well, since Stephen's appeal went out, we've had over 30 calls, and there's even been some more this morning. So again, family incredibly worried about him. We need as much information from the public as possible. Brilliant.
Thank you very much, Ruth. We'll be talking to you later on. Do you know anything about Stephen's disappearance? Well, if so, please get in touch. The number's on your screen now. The response has been brilliant, so if you can't get through on the phones, please keep trying.
Now, the Met Police in Hackney need your help to find 54-year-old Lee Sin Luke, who went missing on the Sunday, the 27th of April. Dave Brewster is here. What more can you tell us about him?
From what we understand, Lee is a very insular, quiet gentleman. He doesn't communicate very well. He only speaks English. I beg your pardon, he doesn't speak English. He only speaks Chinese. We know that he's a creature of habit, and he goes out walking every day, and he usually returns around 5 o'clock every day to his family.
And hasn't, so that's worrying. Also, Nadia Grant, because we were talking about her last week. In fact, we met her mum and her 2 little children as well. Right. Any leads on her of where they've gone?
We've had a fantastic response from the public. We've had a lot of phone calls into the office, but unfortunately, all the leads we've had have proved negative, so we really do need some more information. OK, so it's really important. Thank you for that. If you know where either of them are, please call the Met Police in Hackney on 0207 275 3402, and normal call rates apply.
And now back to our reunited story. He's been missing for 7 days when the police get a call about a man fitting Martin Shear's description. But is it him?
Shirley and Barry Shear are from West Sussex. Their 44-year-old son, Martin, has autism, a brain development disorder that causes problems in social interaction and emotional development.
He was severely bullied at the senior school.
He lives in a local care home and receives the care he needs, and he's regularly visited by his parents. On June the 28th, 2007, his mum Shirley takes him to a quiz night at a local care centre. But Martin gets up and leaves.
I jumped up and chased out to see if I could find him. He'd gone.
Shirley immediately calls Sussex Police.
When Mrs Shear telephoned us from the Burnside Centre, because of Martin's autism, it was a high-risk investigation. We called what we call a pulsar out, which is a police search advisor, and they lay out the parameters of the search at the time.
He's been missing for 3 hours. If he's on foot, he could be anywhere within a 10-mile radius.
As you can imagine, in a rural area, you cannot just simply stick a pin in the map. We come up with a plan of action, and then we will deploy the resources to go and search those areas.
Because Martin can't fend for himself, he needs to be found quickly.
We called our dog handler, who's got a scent dog, and we had an item of clothing with a scent on it.
The dogs found his scent.
That tracked to a certain location, not very far away. That gave us some sort of lead about the direction that Martin went in.
As the light fails, the search is called off. There's still no sign of Martin.
The next day, that's when it really hit me what had happened. I just crumpled then.
We called in search dogs to actually search around some of the areas because there's undergrowth and rivers nearby. My greatest fear was that Martin had slipped into the stream, got unconscious and was in a very bad way.
The search team is rapidly growing. Martin's mum and dad call on friends and neighbours to help them find their son.
We tried to cover areas that the police hadn't covered. We did one area in Withersfield where there was a lot of wooded area and it was enormous.
As the second day draws on, it's becoming clear that searches on foot aren't enough.
We called in the helicopter to use what they call a FLIR, which is a heat-seeking device, to try and find Martin in the bushes because we had such a vast area to cover.
The ground search also continues as police knock on over 300 doors. They ask local people to check their gardens and sheds. A frustrating second day of searching comes to an end with still no clue as to where he is. It's dawn on day 3, and it's time to get the media involved.
The press were called in, local radio stations were contacted, and press appeals were put out to try and locate Martin.
3 hours later, and the appeal gets a result. There's a possible sighting of Martin just 4 miles away from where he went missing.
He fitted the description, same sort of build, even the same sort of clothing.
Still to come on Missing Live, is it him? And we'll have more of Martin's story and how he was eventually found a little later in the programme.
Last week, we brought you a case of 2-year-old Catrice Lee, who vanished from a supermarket. That was 26 years ago. Mike Wilkes here has developed a system that could have helped that investigation. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning.
What is this system and exactly how does it work?
Well, it's a piece of software we use to analyse CCTV footage effectively. The police use it to help with their investigations into missing people, into murders and those sorts of crimes. And effectively what we do is we plot every single pixel change, and using a mathematical equation we can determine movement and height and width and all those types of things.
OK. Well, it sounds quite complicated. We've got a bit of footage that we can, perhaps you can talk us through and see how it actually works.
Yes.
What we've got happening here, we've got people going into like a shopping centre.
This is a sort of typical CCTV scenario where you're seeing people moving in and out of a doorway. Clearly, you could have 1,000 people going in and out of there. If you're looking for a child, you want to exclude all of the adults immediately, as quickly as possible, hone in on the child, and then identify who that individual might be.
So really, your system then can identify in a computer sort of way who is a child, who is an adult.
Correct.
And obviously, if you're sifting through the CCTV and you see a child, then obviously the alarm bells could ring if you're looking for a missing person.
Yes, I mean, if in that first initial few hours, it's very, very critical to exclude as much as possible and hone in on the target. It might be a person, it might be a vehicle, and the police use it for a number of different scenarios.
So are the police using it now?
They are indeed, yes. We have all, in fact, I think 48 of the UK police forces are customers, and we have a range of products, but this is one that they're beginning to use quite extensively.
Brilliant. Well, it is a really, really fascinating system. Another fascinating thing is the story that I've heard about you. You've got your own reunited story, haven't you?
Well, I have, I suppose, yes. I was adopted from birth, found out when I was 15, rummaging around looking for my Christmas presents. I found my original birth certificate. Spent 40 years thinking about it, I guess, and for about 10 years tried to find my real mum. Discovered that as a child I'd sort of parked near her house and probably seen her in the street but didn't know anything about it. And at the age of 51, 52, we were reunited, and now I have 2 half-brothers and a half-sister and a perfectly normal family life for the first time in 53 years.
So for all that time, you didn't even know?
I sort of knew I was adopted, as I say, from a teenager, but I had no idea where my mother might be. I had no idea who she was, and she also had no contact with me, so it was a remarkable experience.
Fantastic story, Mike. Thanks ever so much for sharing with us, and thanks for coming on today. Thank you.
Very kind, thank you.
And Rav and Mike have also been talking about that technology being developed that could help locate missing children. If you've any thoughts on what we're talking about, you can contact us at missing.live@bbc.co.uk. The address is on your screen now. It's been a year since toddler Madeleine McCann disappeared from her family's hotel room in Portugal. Tomorrow, her parents, Kate and Jerry, will be here with us live in the studio. And they'll be joining other families who are going through the same thing. It's 26 years since another toddler, Catrice Lee, vanished from a supermarket, and her sister is not giving up the search. Join them here tomorrow.
Ruth from Missing People is still with us. Ruth, have you any more updates for us?
Yes, at Missing People, we passed some details over to police about 5 calls which were for Shear Ozzer. And just to remind viewers, she's the mum, 51, from Manchester. Disappearance, completely out of character, family extremely worried.
Yeah, I mean, they're rightly to be worried. You know, it's completely out of character. She took just her passport, didn't she? That's the only thing she took.
That's what the police were saying, yes. And it appears no other possessions, so it really is out of character.
Yeah,
so
of course.
Vital we get news through to the free phone about her.
Well, let's hope people do call in with some vital leads. Thank you.
We will be there.
Now, we return to the case of Steve Cook. 9 months have passed. Will the garbled voice down a telephone be the clue that his parents are waiting for?
Stephen Cook is 23. At the end of August 2005, he goes to Crete with his friends for a fortnight's holiday. They're staying in Malia, a resort that's popular with young tourists. After an evening out, Stephen doesn't return to his hotel. By the end of the day, his friends report him missing to Greek police. His parents, Pat and Norman, fly to Crete to search for him. They video everything they do. Although Stephen goes missing in Greece, British police launch their own investigation.
An awful lot of information surrounding Stephen's disappearance was actually UK-based. Stephen was with a UK holiday company. He was with a group of friends from the Sandbach area, So we were able to pull together a dossier of intelligence, which would have been a real useful starting point for the Greek police.
The British officers work to build a relationship with the Greek police. They go over to Crete.
We were able to track fairly tightly and fairly closely where they'd been, who they'd been with. We interviewed a number of people who'd met up with Stephen and his friends, spoke to them, had conversations with them, been drinking with them in various bars, and right up to the point where Stephen and one of his friends left the main group in order to go back to the hotel they were staying at.
It's important to retrace Stephen's steps on that night. There's a witness.
Stephen was last seen standing outside a particular bar looking for directions back to the hotel, which was a matter only of a few hundred yards away, but nonetheless a place which wasn't particularly easy to walk to if you were not familiar with the town.
This is the last time that Stephen is seen that night. In November 2005, 2 months after he disappears, his parents decide to make their own journey to Crete and search for themselves.
I spent something like 6 weeks or so looking at maps, trying to get an idea of scale. And I was quite optimistic that, right, we'll go out and we'll achieve something.
They receive information from someone in Crete that a young man is living in disused mines and caves inland. But they find nothing there to lead them to Stephen. Norman and Pat return to England with no answers. 9 months pass with no news. Then, in early June 2006, something happens that adds to the mystery of the case.
One call came through to Norman and Pat Cook, and it came from a foreign number, and there was no particular message, but again it was something that we immediately jumped on to follow up.
Pat answers the phone and she gets a garbled sort of noise, I can best explain. The phone went dead, and so Pat rang 1471, and the message was different to the normal message of a phone call in the UK, and we identified it as an international call.
We traced that call to an exchange in the Dusseldorf area of Germany. Now, that call could have been made by any person for any reason. It could have been somebody who was just offering a message of support. On the other hand, it could have been Stephen trying to make contact with his family. And in the absence of any firm evidence, it is still something which we would like to get to the bottom of.
Although the call is tracked to Germany, the telephone it's made from is not located. When traced, the details of the number are inconclusive. The family refuse to give up hope. Wanting to do all they can to publicise the case worldwide, they've set up a website.
The internet has played a massive, massive role. I cannot for the life of me see how we'd be able to touch and reach as many people as effectively, as efficiently and as often as we have done without the web.
This is the email that is linked to our website. In the early days we were getting something in the order of several hundred or so a day. It helps an awful lot. And there is always that possibility that it might lead to that little spark of information, and there are a lot of emails on this site that I've been able to pass on to the Cheshire Police.
The Cooks' lives have been in limbo since September 2005 as they wait for news.
Stephen's always there. He always will be, he'll never go away. And there are times when I look at the kids in the face and I see the pain, and no parent should see that pain in the kid's face. Right now, if you were to say to me, what would you want most of all, other than him being here? And my answer to you would be, just let me know he's alive.
If you know anything about where Steve may be, please call missing people. 0500 700 700 is the number. Landline calls are free, but mobiles may vary.
Missing people need your help now to find 50-year-old Paul Hopkins. He's been missing from Bracknell in Berkshire for just 2 weeks. He may have travelled to London, but this is unconfirmed. Paul's 5'8" with brown eyes and short brown hair. When last seen, he was wearing a navy sweatshirt in grey trousers. And his family want your help to search for Paul.
All morning we've been telling you the reunited story of Martin Shear. It's a week since he walked off. He can't fend for himself, but there is a new lead. Shirley and Barry Shear's 44-year-old son Martin suffers from autism. On the 28th of June 2007, Martin is at a quiz night with his mum. He gets up, walks out and doesn't come back. There are 3 days of searches by family and police. They use sniffer dogs, helicopters and dozens of people search on foot. There's still no sign of Martin. But then, after appeals in the media, there's a potential sighting. Within 30 minutes, the man they think is Martin is in police care.
He fitted the description, same sort of build, even the same sort of clothing.
We got all very excited. It turned out that it was somebody else. That was really devastating because, you know, you were lifted up and then suddenly you crashed down again, you know.
My concerns grew every day. Obviously, someone like Martin with autism is extremely vulnerable.
Time is running out in the search. Martin is really vulnerable. The police call in more volunteers.
We got 2 neighbourhood watch groups in Sussex. In the North Downs area, we have approximately 130 trained volunteers.
Paul is one of the volunteers. His team searched the area around Burgess Hill for 3 hours. They seemed to be getting nowhere. Until...
One of my searchers shouted to me, and he pointed up the bank here at what looked like a pile of rags under a bush. I studied it and decided that it could be a body. I called out the casualty's name, but failed to get any response. I then started climbing the bank, and when I reached the top of the bank, I saw him raise his head. I must say it was a great feeling to find someone alive. It was brilliant.
For everyone, it's a huge relief.
He was dehydrated. I don't believe he had eaten in the 7 days he was been missing, but in good spirits.
A week of tireless searching and hundreds of people involved. Finally, Martin is taken to hospital and his mum and dad rushed to see him.
When I got there, he was having his first meal for 7 days and he really looked as if he was enjoying it.
The feeling was almost indescribable of just sheer relief.
I just sat down beside him and just held his hand for a little while, you know, and talked to him.
10 months on, Martin's life has returned to the order and routine his autism needs.
Imagine having one of these in the garden.
Oh, a garden, isn't it? Yeah.
Be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I think we'd need a bigger garden, wouldn't we?
You would, Justin, yeah.
He now lives in a new residential care home and is able to spend a great deal of time with his parents.
That'd be nice for your tea, wouldn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Let's have a look.
It's that lemon one. You know, Martin's now in a safe place with professional people looking after him. He's happy, and hopefully it will last.
That really is a huge relief for everyone involved. Just before we go, had a fantastic response from you all, and here's some of the people, though, that really need your help.
Yes, Steve Cook hasn't been seen since a night out in Malia in Crete on the 31st of August 2005. Despite a huge search by the Greek and the British police, he is still missing. We are getting calls. Any more information is much appreciated.
There's been one possible sighting of 22-year-old Craig Hetherington, who vanished in February 2003 from Gisborne in Cleveland. Craig's 6'2", with short fair hair, and his disappearance is completely out of character.
We still really need your help in finding 15-year-old Melissa Mack. She went missing on the 16th of February this year in Northampton. And remember, Melissa has a brown right eye, a blue-grey left eye, and we have had one call so far on that, only one call on Melissa so far.
No calls yet, I'm afraid, on 15-year-old Mariam Naeem. She went missing on February the 11th in East London. There's great concern for her, as Mariam is diabetic and may need hospital treatment if she has no medication.
Yes, and if you can help us in any way, please call. Also, lots of you have been in touch with us wanting to trace family members. We'll have more on that later in the series. Here's just a couple of examples. Margarita from Harrow, she's been searching for her own parents, points out that birth parents can now approach an organisation such as NORCAP, for example, and ask for help in arranging a search.
And we've had a lovely letter from Judy, who's recently had an incredible reunion with her mother after 58 years apart. They've led parallel lives. Both have been nurses, caterers and dressmakers, and she said the jigsaw is now fully complete.
How amazing. And Jan, just quickly, she was 16 when she gave her son, had to give him up. For years she tried to trace him and never gave up hope. Her son has now been found. He's 43, and she says now the work begins, taking one step at a time. So those are just some of your stories. Thank you for those. That's all we've got time for today. Many thanks for all your calls. If you want to contact us, you can email us at missing.live@bbc.co.uk. Now, on tomorrow's programme, we'll have updates on all our appeals. Plus, Kate and Jerry McCann will be here live in the studio. It's been a year since their daughter, Madeline, went missing. They'll be joining other families who are going through the same thing.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you at the same time tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Will do. Bye-bye.